Hi, how are you? Matt Watson here from Carwow. So in this video, I'm going to take you through the evolution of the Lamborghini Aventador. I want to explain exactly how we got to the very last of the line, the brand new Lamborghini Aventador Ultimae. So this really is the pinnacle of the Aventador. Its 6.5 litre naturally aspirated V12 pumps out 780 horsepower. There's only 350 of these coupes made. In this video though, I'm going to talk you through all its predecessors, and of course I'm going to launch them to see how quick they are from 0 to 60 and over the standing quarter mile, because I'm Matt Watson and you're watching Carwow. Buy, sell, Carwow. Let's start this video at the very beginning, and the original Aventador, the LP704. It was introduced in 2011, but it's very hard to think that this design is over 11 years old. It still looks modern. It was actually inspired by the Sesto Elemento and the Reventon, which are actually based on the Murcielago, but just more angry and aggressive looking, which this car is. And it was the first Lamborghini to have its body made entirely out of carbon fibre, but apart from the lights and some of the bits of trim. Anyway, price. Back in the day, this thing cost from £240,000. In 2015, Lamborghini introduced this, the LP754 SV. SV stands for Super Veloce, which means super fast. Basically, Lamborghini thought, wait a minute, we need to make an Aventador that's more track focused, so they introduced this to the top of the range. It has a redesigned front end, it's more aggressive, more aero on it. You've got exposed carbon fibre, wheel sizes went up from 19 at the front and 20s at the back to 20s at the front and 21s at the rear. It also had fixed air intakes over the rear haunches rather than the adjustable ones. And of course, you got that big rear wing. The rear itself has been redesigned as well with more aero and it's more aggressive, and you've got a big rear diffuser. The downforce that all these aero additions made to the car was an increase over the standard Aventador of 170%. Also, you probably spotted the exhaust, gone from 2 pipes to 4. Well, these upgrades don't come for free though. The SV cost £320,000. By 2017, it was time for a facelift, and Lamborghini thought, while we're at it, let's add a letter to the car's name. So now the range started with the Aventador S. And it also took some of the design cues from the SV, such as the front bumper, especially the lower splitter with a 2-tier design, although obviously not as aggressive as the SV. It also had 20-inch alloy wheels at the front and 21s at the rear. And the SV's fixed top-mounted rear haunch air intakes. What it didn't get at the SV, obviously, was that fixed rear wing. Just like the original Aventador, you had an electrically operated rear spoiler. The back had more aero than the original Aventador, and as a result of that, plus some clever vortices underneath the car, downforce compared to the original Aventador was up by 130%. And to mark the fact that it's better than the original Aventador, you got 3 rather than 2 exhaust pipes. As for the price, it started at £270,000. In 2018, the Aventador SVJ went on sale and only 900 were built. Starting price £350,000. So it took the same idea as the SV, so it's the most track-focused Lamborghini. In fact, SV, Super Veloce, and the J stands for Yota, which in Lamborghini speak is track and dynamicness. They really went to town on the air on this car. I mean, looking at the front, it's absolutely crazy. You've got some active flaps at the front, but even more so at the rear. So you've got this special air intake just in front of the rear wing, and it channels air into the wing, which can then open different flaps, and it sort of works like an airplane wing, helping steer the car. It's crazy. And they've even altered the position of the exhaust pipes. They've raised them up higher so you get more performance out of the engine while being able to fit a massive rear diffuser. The result is that this car has 40% more downforce than the old SV, yet it has 1% less drag. Let's move on to the engines. The Aventador got a brand new 6.5 litre naturally aspirated V12 with 700 horsepower and 690 Newton meters of torque. It's mounted in the middle of the car, and it drives all 4 wheels via a 7-speed single clutch robotised manual gearbox. 0 to 60, well, Lamborghini says 2.9 seconds, but we'll find out in a bit when I launch it. For the SV, Lamborghini fettled the 6.5 litre V12 and altered the variable valve timing and fitted an uprated exhaust. The result, 50 more horsepower. So this car has 750 horsepower, but it still has the same 690 Newton meters of torque. That said though, it's still quicker. So this car accelerates from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 2.8 seconds. Top speed, well, Lamborghini quote more than 217 miles an hour. Why more than 217? because 217 miles an hour is the top speed of the normal Aventador, so it's got to be faster, right? The reason why they didn't say how much faster is because apparently it's only 2 miles an hour faster. Top speed of this, 219 miles an hour, so people say. For the S, Lamborghini thought, well, we need to make this car more powerful than the old Aventador, but we can't have it more powerful than the SV, so let's give it 740 horsepower. Yeah, it's got the same torque though, 690 Newton meters. Also, it's got the same 0 to 60 time as the original Aventador, 2.9 seconds, and the same top speed, 217 miles an hour. For the SVJ, Lamborghini fitted an exhaust system that's higher up, and so it's just a shorter route for the gases to exit. The result is more horsepower, 770 horsepower, and 720 Newton meters of torque. So what does that mean? 0 to 60, 2.8 seconds, which is the same as the SV. Anyway, it's going to be interesting to see how these cars actually compare in reality when I launch them in a bit. So yes, hang on for that, it is coming. Top speed, they did the same thing again. They said it's going to be over 270 miles an hour. And once again, when people have tested it, it's 219 miles an hour. I've just noticed there's a load of mud inside this car's engine bay. You can't lift up the engine cover quite as easy as on the other cars, because for the SVJ, Lamborghini decided to make it a manual removal system. You have to have 2 keys and do it and lift it off. And I'm not going to lift it off in this wing because it'll probably blow away and then shatter on the floor, and I'll have to pay its owner quite a lot of money. And if you want to see who the owner is, who's left all this mud in the engine bay, there's a link in the description. You've got to check out his videos because he just abuses this thing, something rotten. You've heard me talk about the engines, but you'd probably rather let the engines speak for themselves. So what I'm going to do now is cold start each of these Aventadors, starting with the original one. And I love how you have to lift up this flap, a bit like the missile button on a fighter jet, to start the engine. So here we go, have a listen to this. Oh yeah, cheeky little blip. So let that heat up. While we do that, let's hear the SV. Quite similar, surprise, surprise. Now for the S. Took a little longer to fire up, that one. Oh, hello. Here's the cold start on the SVJ. I really thought that wasn't going to start at all. Now the cars are warmed up, let's compare the exhaust sound when you rev them like crazy. So go on, rev it up! Now let's hear the SV. Come on, what you got? Oh. Definitely better being on the inside, doesn't it, your ears so much? Now let's have a listen to the Aventador S. Now let's have some revs chaosness with the SVJ. Here we go. I've done that quite a lot, haven't I? Oh, but it's the right expression. Ooh. So, driving the Lamborghini Aventador. Let's put in its sporty setting Corsa and have some fun with this V12. Oh, yes, that's what this car is about. One thing you notice, gear changes. Compared to a modern dual clutch system, there's a bit of a like jolt when you change, especially at the top end. You can actually smooth it out yourself a bit by lifting off the accelerator. So, like that, things have improved. It's quite funny that even the very latest Aventadors still have that single clutch robotised manual. Now the interesting thing about this car, because you might think it has adaptive dampers, but it doesn't. The original car came on passive dampers, so it doesn't matter what driving mode you're in, the ride is always quite firm and bumpy. The brakes are good, but they can be a little bit grabby. I'll tell you what I can't complain about though. Steering, hydraulic, none of your electric power steering system, so it does feel good. Another thing I can't fault is the four-wheel drive system itself. Gives you loads and loads of traction out of corners. You can feel it wanting to play this car, it's funny. Stability control helps kind of tidy things up. and it's not as like kind of on the edge scary as the Murcielago was. Thanks to its common body, the Aventador weighed in at under 1,600 kilos. It's not bad considering you've got a massive V12, four-wheel drive system, and it is quite a sizable machine, even though it's a two-seater. Overall though, it's held up well, stood the test of time, and as you go through generations, I imagine it's going to get better. So the SV had some major overhauls to the chassis compared to the normal Aventador. You've now got adaptive dampers. In fact, the suspension isn't rated, and that does mean that when you go through the different modes, you can actually soften the suspension or firm it up. And overall, regardless of which mode you're in, even coarse to the most extreme setting, it just feels a little bit more compliant, just works with the road a bit better. They also recalibrated the gearbox, so the shifts are a little bit quicker. It's still sort of like as your head banging if you just change gear and don't lift off the throttle. Also, everything just seems a little bit more brutal and a bit raw in here. There's less sound deadening. The exhaust is loud on the outside. It's loud on the inside as well. They also recalibrated the steering, so it's just a little bit more responsive. Another big difference is that the SV gets a limited slip differential not only on the rear, but you also get one on the front. It's an electronically controlled one on the front though, rather than just a normal one on the rear. Another big change is the weight. So the SV is 50 kilos lighter than the standard Aventador, and you might think you may not notice it, but you do. I don't know what it is, but somehow or other this engine just feels more responsive. It's like they've improved the mapping of the throttle. The brakes, similar but seem less grabby. Oh! I love smashing off the rev limit. Everything combined just works to make this feel just more like the track car it's supposed to be. I've got a feeling this might be my favourite one, but we'll find out for sure later. For this Aventador S, Lamborghini made one significant change, and it is the fitting, for the first time on a Lamborghini ever, rear wheel steering. It's designed to help get it turning into corners just a little bit quicker and to make it a bit more stable at high speeds. Another change was a revamp to the suspension, so even this entry, if there is such a thing as an entry-level Aventador, gets adaptive dampers, and they are a huge benefit. Also, it's good, like with this Eco mode, that you can set the car up exactly as you want it, so you're not just dictated by Lamborghinis how things should be. You can mix and match your throttle mapping, stiffness of your suspension, the steering weight, and all that kind of thing, which is good. And it's great that it's called Eco, isn't it? Another thing I've noticed going through these different Aventadors is that the gear change seems to have been like smoothed out a little bit better as they've got older. It's like the engineers have had more time to refine things. The brakes just feel a little bit more predictable, less grabby. I think inside it's got a little bit quieter. The original Aventador, and especially the SV, just sounded a little bit more raucous, more noise coming from them. I mean, this is not quiet by any stretch of the imagination, but it doesn't feel quite as like, as the other two. Still, lots of performance. Oh yeah. Yeah, gets you right there. Oh. First thing you need to know about the SVJ is that Lamborghini have really gone to town on it. So they've reworked the suspension. They've made the dampers 15% stiffer front and back. They've made the anti-roll bars 50% stiffer. They've also recalibrated the four-wheel drive system, so it's 3% more rear drive biased. They've also worked on the rear wheel steering system as well. It just feels more alive. Once again, it's like the thing between the SV and the standard Aventador, but here I think it's probably made the car not only a bit more raucous, but in some ways a little bit easier to drive quickly. They've really nailed it down. It's like they've totally got the hang of the Aventador now and know how to get the optimum out of it. And it's still brutal. Oh my god, that never gets old. In some ways though, it doesn't feel quite as crazy as the SV, even though it actually is. It's hiding its madness somewhat. Some people do complain that it's a little bit too easy for an Aventador, but I'm not so sure about that. It's still an Aventador, which means it's still, ready for the cliche, a raging bull. That sounded like a load of bull to me, actually. The inside of the Aventador is similar to the exterior in the way that it is aged very, very well, apart from two things. One, this digital driver's display in the way that it's actually separated by this horrible piece of plastic, and the infotainment system, which is very old. It's a very old Audi system to be precise, but the rest of it's quite nice. The big dash and seats, this huge sensor console, the way these switches, a little bit like those on an aeroplane, all very good. And it feels serious, it sits super low. It's quite hard to see out of it. The windscreen is so raked, and the view at the back's tiny, and wing mirror view ain't great either, apart from the fact you can see the air vents, which is nice. Yeah, parking this thing is a nightmare, but you don't care, because people are looking at you. In fact, maybe you do care. And that's why you bought it, because you want people to look at you. You just don't want them to look at you when you reverse into someone's car, because you can't see out. Big thing about any V12 Lamborghini though, no exception with this, look. Oh yes, scissor doors. You don't get that on your Huracan, do you? Key changes for the SV are these SV seats, and you also have exposed carbon fibre on them. Also exposed carbon fibre on the door, and oh yes, all important for a track car, you don't have normal handles, you have these special pull shuts. Yeah, we like that. Also, I like Alcantara on the dash. But the big upgrade that you really do appreciate every time you're driving the car is the improved instrument cluster. It's much better, isn't it? For the Aventador S, Lamborghini didn't do too much, though they did do something quite strange. So while they updated the infotainment screen for the SV, they didn't carry it across. They gave the S yet another new infotainment system. You also get some rated seats over the original Aventador, though they're not as nice as the ones in the SV, but you wouldn't expect them to be, would you? Because that's the track focus car. Other than that, it's pretty much the same as it was with the old Aventador. They didn't even bother to change the infotainment system. Oh, apart from the fact that it now gets Apple CarPlay as standard, though no Android Auto. Everything else, same as it was. Here on the inside of the SVJ, basically Lamborghini have done the same to this compared to the S as they did with the SV over the standard Aventador. You've got Alcantara bits, you've got, oh yeah, exposed carbon fibre door pulls, you've got carbon fibre seats with the SVJ logo, the pattern on it. You've also got some bespoke SVJ graphics on the infotainment system. Oh, and if you wanted to, you could not have the infotainment system. I wonder who chose that option. Probably no one, unless they're a masochist. Now I'm going to launch this old Aventador. See how close I can get to the claim 0 to 60 time of 2.9 seconds. Go. It's good. Oh, the gear change is nuts. 3.27. What's the quarter mile? 11.11. Woo. That really hooked up extremely well, and the gear shifts, I actually enjoy them when you're really on it. The brutal effect of them, the way they're smacking the back, just adds to the drama. Day-to-day driving, not so much, but then, yes, I enjoy it. Let's launch the SV, see if we can get to its 2.8 second 0 to 60 time. It's just jumping all over the place, it's nuts. As a result though, 3.3 seconds. It really just was crazy. And 11.03 standing quarter mile. Considering it was just like hopping around like a mad thing, that wasn't bad. Get on a drag strip, it'll do the time probably, maybe, perhaps. Woo. Right, I'm going to launch this Aventador S. What's it going to do 0 to 60? Here we go. 3.18. That was mental. Come on, 10.95. The way that hooked up was insane. It just was tugging left and right. I love how Aventadors launch, and this one has so far launched the best. All right, let's launch SVJ. So, what's it going to be? 0 to 60. That's the most brutal yet. 3.05, and it's on the money. Yeah. Yes, winning. Felt the most brutal, went the best, and it's beat the others on the times. Now let's do a brake test. See what distance it takes this Aventador to stop from 60 miles an hour. We're going to do a full emergency stop. There we go, we're at 60. Hold of the anchors now. Whoa, oh, blimey. That was intense, it did a good job. And it stopped from 60 miles an hour in 32 meters. That's really good. Okay, brake test in the SV. Here we go, from 60. Let's get it there. Ooh, 31 meters. All right, I'm gonna brake test the Aventador S. How long will it take to stop from 60? Let's find out now. Ooh, 30 meters! Yay! Okay, brake test from 60 in the SVJ. Let's do it. What we got? 35 meters. This does have Pirelli quarter tyres on, which are more aggressive than those in the other cars, which means that they probably work better when heated up, and the tyres on this car are goldish. Sorry about that. So then overall, what is my final verdict? Which is my favourite of these Aventadors? Well, I think it's the SV. It combines the rawness that I like from the SVJ without being overly technical. It's a really good combination. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a like. If you click on those windows there, you can watch some more videos. And if you click on that box there, you get a carwow to sell your car. Just upload some photos of your car and our dealers will bid on it to make sure you get a great price. And I'll come to your house, take it away, put the cash in your account. It's easy.